good day to you all. This is Fatmarrow, back in effect. Going to talk about skyboxes today. I had a question from somebody, so I thought I'd just do a video. Why not? So a skybox is hopefully one of the least noticed things in your games, and so that I suppose means you don't have to give it too much attention. But anyway, so in this on TeamMap, which I've been showing things off in, I've got this sort of vista of the French Riviera, and there's a few elements here. There's this sea element, which the moving texture on it's quite nice. There's a few sort of odd artifacts at the side. It's probably optimizing to make things only look pretty in the direction you're looking in. And there's this nice sort of wave crest stuff. The problem I have at the moment is how to make it look nice at the where it meets the land, because there's no breaking waves, there's none of that stuff. And with this very irregular coastline, that might be a bit tricky to do, but that's not today's problem. Another issue with it is that, so you're not going to go in the water. There are some solutions to that. I guess you could make a post-process volume that goes up right as far as the water level. It would be nice to have, I think, does it actually change the world offset or just look like it does? So the actual water level is actually moving, so it would be quite hard to marry up a static post-process volume with that to create a sort of foggy underwater area. And then there's the physics of things too, and it's fair to say that I've not seen the latest version of Unreal do very good underwater stuff yet. The Unreal 1999 version of the engine actually had far better underwater stuff than this one. Never mind, I'm sure it's all to come. Or to be sold via the marketplace, where it's the usual answer to these things. So the sky is a stock Unreal asset. Now this is a very pretty piece of work. It all comes ready-made. It is the Sky Sphere blueprint, which you'll find... No, you won't. I haven't had coffee today. Where's my coffee? I might have to pause the video and come back to you. So the BP Sky Sphere, well, I've already got one in, but this is all self-contained. If we go to the properties of it, it's quite simple really. It's got you can define the colours, but these are all pretty much as you'd want. You can have clever things like it changes the colours depending on where the light is pointing. Assign your levels directional light. So the clever bit is you link your directional light to this, and here's my directional light. And then it changes the colours depending on where the light's pointing, and it moves the sun around. So if I'm just going to quickly play with that. Oh, does it take time to update? Is that? Yeah, so doesn't seem to move the sun. Maybe that has to be done manually, but I don't know. Maybe I have to rebuild. And I'd like to undo all of that. Well, anyway, there was some clever stuff you do with that, and you can change lots of things and tweak it, and it works nicely. Directional lights is what you want to... Oh, done it again. To change the sunlight in your level. Because sunlight is directional, so you can have, well, it won't be there, will it? Noon sun to sort of setting sun, and you want to change the temperature of it a bit probably. This looks like it's doing an automatic colour change, except it's not. And you can do light shafts and other stuff that I don't want to worry about right now. Yeah, so you obviously want the directional light, to marry up with the position of the sun, and I think it's automatic, but you might have to rebuild to get that. The other aspect of this skybox is these bits, which is just a texture, well, material, with quite a large scale. That's just positioned. Where's the origin? So, you can move it around more usefully. You can rotate it so it's just right where you need it to be. I don't want to mess up my level. There's another one here, and you can see it's rough around the edges. There was going to be a bit of geometry there, which is going to block off the end of that. It's not working terribly well, and this is quite a nasty join. So what I might do... Oh, it's Looks like it's angled. Oh no, the C doesn't go all the way. So what I might do, rather than tweaking where these things are positioned, I might go back into Photoshop and then just bring that edge down so it tapers away to nothing. That doesn't actually reflect what happens in OnT. There's a big hill there, but just so you don't get odd things. I mean, at the moment, the view of these backdrops is blocked by buildings for the most part. There are some bits where it's most susceptible to see them. So this is the highest point you can get to, and there's nothing, you know, the illusion is preserved for now. Oh yeah, I'll kill the lighting, didn't I? But it might need a bit of work just to hide that. So that's one approach. For a sort of sunny day, the Unreal asset comes with all these lovely little clouds. It's very nicely done. For a sunny day without clouds, I see no reason not to use the standard Unreal stuff. And I dress up a bit with other things. That's another backdrop there, which maybe I'll move around. In fact, create a copy to stretch it to there to cover the gaps. Yes, I've got a plan now. That's one option, but if all levels had blue sky, sunny days, that would be quite boring. So let me just... I don't think I want to save that level. Okay, well, I'll show you another version of that. Oh, I don't know if I want to save it. Don't save. This is another blue sky sunny day, but I've done a lot more with the sort of texture around the side. Now, it does look a little bit old school, and that's not a compliment. The resolution is limited. I should probably have loaded this first, shouldn't I? Maybe I'll put a time lapse in. But it gets you to... it's kind of a quick and dirty way to do it. It's very high performance. You're only rendering some textures in the background. They're masked, but the drop on that is insignificant. Another approach is just to fill in the landscape with actual meshes. You do get on the marketplace. Let me find marketplace. While that's loading, marketplace, moving at the speed of light through treacle. So I think, search for rocks and you'll find half the marketplace. Background mountains. So you get things like this, and you can adapt other kinds of... Hi, it's me again. So what happened here is the audio died for some reason. I was recording in OBS. I've had some problems with audio on this. I had blamed Premiere for them. Anyway, I'm talking about background meshes. I forget exactly what I said, but it was probably quite interesting. I'm sure it was. Sparkling, witty, you know, the kind of stuff. So I'll try and remember what I was saying about stuff. Oh, look, the level's still loading. Oh, it looks terrible. Oh, look at it. AAA quality game. So this is my Pankisi Gorge level, which is a copy of an infiltration level that somebody else did much better. This came out a little small in the scale, because it's quite hard to get the scale right when you're converting old maps, or it is hard for me to do it. Ramble, blah blah blah. The material's not loading properly. Oh no, I've got to do something about that. What else did I say? So yeah, it was a fun level, the original one. A slightly bigger expanse of soft cover to go through, so you were vulnerable, but you could move stealthily with the bushes. And I'm talking about the skybox again, because this is all about skyboxes. So, oh yeah, I'm talking about the layout because I digress. I always digress. This is very meta, isn't it? Yeah, so the flow was quite fun in the original map. Blah blah blah. Pankisi Gorge. Next time I'll do it, I might scale it up like 1.5 times the size, twice the size, so it feels like a proper imposing gorge. A bit like the original-ish. Oh, the landscape material is not working. I think that's because the engine version changed, and it broke some stuff. Or I just broke some stuff without knowing it, which is often the way, for some dumb reason. Yeah, look at that quality vegetation there. That was landscape grass. I had to go at that. That didn't work very well. That could have been the mesh I used, the marketplace asset I used. Skybox, yes, Skybox. So I basically used some reference material of the Pankisi Gorge in Georgia, I think it is, and I had some photos that were, I'm sure, royalty free, and basically I had a little portion of the picture and I cloned it. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with the quality of the cloning in this case. You don't see any obvious, well, super obvious repetition of stuff, and I tapered it away at the sides so that it would have a nice end and not have a jarring sort of mountain ending in the middle of nowhere. And it also helped define the valley ends. So that's just taking photographs and adapting them. That was quite a lot of work to adapt them. It's not an easy way to do it necessarily. And it's quick and dirty. I mean, the performance is good. You're just displaying a few masked textures, basically. But you can see some of the resolution limits. So you'll generally get a nicer, more scalable, more future-proof result by using meshes. But I find that these sort of bitmap textures give a perfectly acceptable result. I had said earlier that your skybox isn't really seen, isn't noticed much. I mean, when you're playing, you're not looking at the skybox particularly, but then again, it is also omnipresent. You see it everywhere, so you want a good skybox, basically. I've changed my mind. Oh, I'm talking about the rocks now. These are marketplace assets I've used. I'm digressing again. I do that. And I modified them to add a moss texture, which you can vertex paint on using similar techniques as to those I used for painting on vegetation onto my medieval wall, which is in one of my other chats, 4 or 5 I think, or 6 or 7, can't remember, maybe it was 7, the last one, was it the last one, maybe, yeah, so it basically blends between the rock and the moss texture. The moss texture is my addition to the stock texture from the marketplace. It adds a little touch of moss. You can, as I'm about to demonstrate, apply full moss, but I struggle to get the colours matching, and the irony of getting the colours matching nicely from the rocks to the ugly checkerboard pattern, it does look nicer when the texture loads. And there was a ugly but quite clever landscape texture I might come back to. I'm now thinking, because it did things like modify the texture based on the slope and the height, which gives you very easy variable looking landscapes, because so I'm talking about how the moss is full on there, but it doesn't blend well. So an objective is to get things looking organic and a little like a computer, as a Unreal level as possible. And so materials that change their properties with vertex painting or with orientation just give as much visual interest and visual difference. Anything that moves you away from lots and lots of repeated scaled textures that you can tell are grid-like and scaled. Pew pew pew, here we are. Halfway through loading my gatehouse map. And I do hope the landscape material works on this one, because that would be annoying otherwise. I hate trying to fix landscape materials. There's a few things I could show you in this one, and I was going to show you something about spline meshes. Maybe in a different video. I'll keep this one short. But here we have, already loaded, so I can talk about it now, the skybox. This is an old school skybox. Well, it's half old school. Because what it is essentially just a texture wanged around 360 degrees in a sphere. So you can just about tell there's a bit of a limited resolution. I think it's a 4K texture. And it's basically something I bought off a different kind of marketplace. Oh look, landscape material is Geficken. That's annoying. Okay, another one to the list. And there is that dramatic sunset, sunrise. Now the first thing you'll notice is that this skybox was shot in around winter time, and my level is set around spring, summertime. So hopefully nobody will ever notice that, and I'll get away with it. It does look better with not that stuff in it, I promise. I also went mad with speed trees, and I've seen people go more mad since with them. That was it. And when I started doing this, the version of Unreal Engine didn't do them very well. The mip mapping or something went horribly wrong, so I made all sorts of tweaks to make them look better, which made them perform worse, and I think I've not since undone the tweaks. yeah, so the skybox. So that is over here. And what it is a cube map. I've had those since the second version of Unreal Engine. Now somebody did the hard work of making it a cube map for me. I've tried to use Photoshop to make a cube map of things, and well, I could blame myself, or I could blame Adobe for making horrible software, but that didn't work out too well. It wasn't entirely straightforward. But basically somebody took a picture here with a camera, cloned in some bottom bits probably, and made a cube map. It's an HDR cube map, so that presumably when your eye does the auto exposure to lighter bits or darker bits, you still get a good amount of detail in the skybox. It doesn't just scale linearly. Damn, I'd love to show you some more of this map. And so the question is to get the right kind of skybox and to make it blend in appropriately. So I, believe it or not, made the landscape texture, landscape material. I think I tweaked the colour so it would blend in with the colour of the background bits. Also, you know, I've got sort of rolling hills, and that blends in with the rolling hills. I've got vaguely similar foliage, and also the skybox works because everything you can see is in the distance. Nothing breaks immersion quite like having something very close in the skybox overlaid by something far away in your actual level. So it just kind of worked. It just worked quite nicely. I did want to do a night version of this map. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that. I might edit the skybox, the cube map, but I don't really fancy editing this. But it's doable. But yeah, the question that spurred this talk off was what to do to make an overcast skybox. Well, I suppose there's a third option, which is that you can just make it completely overcast, make a sort of grey texture, or even just a grey material. So if you had like a white material applied to a sphere, and I got one of them. Where's my meshes? Skybox. So here's a few little bits. These are set up with default stuff. So yeah, from the Pankezi map, that's just like a sort of cylinder to wrap around. I don't have a sphere here. I must have put it somewhere else. Well, I think there's a I don't know. It's not too hard. You just make a sphere in your 3D program of choice and then stick on your material, which could just be a plain white material. I guess no glossiness, so you want maximum roughness. Make it unlit. That's quite important. So this, whatever this is, this must be, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I made a material with my sky cube. Okay, so this is probably pertinent. So you put the cube into this thing, material, expression, texture, sample, parameter cube. What? Oh, that's a parameter. I don't know what the normal thing that is. Anyway, so that takes your sky cube and turns it into something that can be used as a material. So that's kind of cool, isn't it? Oh, wait, come back. And that is very, very minimal. So let's see, you have to define a reflection vector. UVs. So that must be a way to basically get where you're looking at. So this might have some use in making glass reflections, actually. Yeah, so if you look at some of the glass that Unreal have in their demo levels, you can see that they rather than having proper reflections, because the glass is translucent, they have to basically get a diffuse colour dependent on when you're looking, and then blend that in with the diffuse colour of the actual material. And that gives you the appearance of reflections. Easy to show than to explain. And so all this has is an emissive colour, which is the old school unlit property. So emissive means it's not affected by any other lighting, and that's what you want. So you've got a constant level of lighting, and what you see depends on where you're looking. So that just gives you essentially a sphere effect. So whatever material you apply this to, whatever mesh you apply this to, whether it's a cube or a sphere, as long as it covers the entire sky, this should render absolutely fine, because it doesn't matter what the shape of the mesh is, it's going to return the colour depending on where you're looking. Okay, so there is this. Oh, where's it gone? This Skybox. Skybox. Oh look, it's a blueprint. That's where it went. Skydome. Da-da-da, is a sky sphere. So this is a stock Unreal asset. Okay, so the stock Unreal asset. That's quite apocalyptic. Looks like a nuclear explosion. Pow! Goodbye, Gatehouse. The stock sphere has that material applied to it, which is that lovely one from the default Skybox. And that is literally just a sphere to which you apply a material. The default material is this panning clouds material, which is full of clever bits, I'm sure. It must be, actually. Let's see a clever Unreal material, clever Epic material. It's going to be big. Yeah. So they do lots of clever stuff. Pardon me. And I'm not going to go into that because I don't know how it works. So to get an overcast sky, do a cube map with an overcast sky, or just do a simple grey sort of texture, put it on a sphere so it covers the whole sky. Maybe have some clouds scudding across with whatever techniques they use in that material, and then have your meshes defining your horizon. The benefit of having a cube map of your skybox is that you can use it in the, if I can ever find it, I think this is the one. Oh, that's fog. Skylight. Not skylight. Skylight, yes. So the skylight actor basically gives you diffuse lighting, simulating where, like if you're on a sunny day and the sky is blue, people tend to notice the fact that the sun is yellow and things get a bit yellowy in sunlight. What people notice less is that the shadows on a sort of noon sunlit day tend to be bluish. If you don't notice until you start taking pictures of things and start playing with colour balance, that what that is, it's the light. So the blue sky is oh, please don't. It's emitting lots of blue, and it's balanced out by the sun brightness, because obviously it's from scattering from the sun, so the sun will be obviously brighter regardless. But you have this component of other things sort of providing ambient light. And so this is really sort of ambient light. I don't know if I can turn it off to show the difference. It's static. No, it made no difference whatsoever. But you can provide a cube map for the skylight, and that essentially, it's the same cube map, ideally, you use for the sky. So if there's lots of blue in your sky, it will simulate lighting from that relevant angle with that relevant colour. So if there is a large orange glow in one part of the sky, things which are facing it will get that diffuse orange glow, or other things which are not occluded from it will get the diffuse orange glow. Now it does things in practice which are far more simple and less complete than what I've just said. I mean, it has some hacks to make it work quickly, but when you're basically baking in your static lighting, it will add in, depending on your quality level of your lighting, I suspect, this skylight, which will give you diffuse light, so that if you have a bit in shade from the sun, there will be this sort of blue cast to it from the blue sky, or in theory. Though in practice, colour balance is a complicated thing. I think you can set a colour balance for the level. We perceive things differently depending on how our brain adjusts for colour balance. I mean, there's lots of optical illusions where, what colour is that cube? Oh, it's white. And then you reveal the rest of it. Oh, no, it's orange or it's blue. Because we see colour balances relatively, what the colour balance of one thing appears to be, or what the colour of something appears to be, depends on the context. So if you have a very strong colour surrounding something, it will tend to take on the opposite colour because our brains are used to just manually adjusting. So that when we're running through the fields naughtily, like Theresa May, we can, we see consistent colours, even though the sky conditions may be different. An overcast day, a sunlit day at noon or at sunset, all providing dramatically different colour balances. And again, you don't tend to notice this until you start doing things like processing large volumes of wedding photos and trying to get the colour balance consistent, and you realise that it varies by huge amounts throughout the day. And depending on where you are, in the shade, in the sun, and so on and so forth, and whether you're next to a big wall that's got a colour on it, But I deliberately wanted this to be a warm colour balance, because it is the end of the day, and perceptually, we do sort of see things in that sort of warm light. I could have corrected the colour balance to make it look more white, but it would have ruined the atmosphere. The atmosphere which is so good with all this checkerboard pattern around. So there we go, that's a ramble on skyboxes, but for an overcast skybox, either cube map with an overcast sky, either from reference photos or not. And actually, how do you make the cube map? Well, I can't tell you how to make the cube map because I don't really know, because I haven't got Photoshop to work, but there are many programs which will stitch together panoramas in a better way than your iPhone will. Let me just have a pause and I'll find some examples. Bang! I'm back. I've had more coffee too. I should make a mental note never to do these before I've had coffee. In fact, never to do anything before I've had coffee. Right, so this is an example of my high quality photography. Notice the level horizon and the exciting subject matter. So I was at Southwold, lovely place on the Suffolk coast. I haven't included the view of Sizewell B, a nuclear reactor. That's a bit further round. We might come back to that. But I noticed this was a lovely, well, for a mapper, overcast day with some cloud detail and a relatively unobstructed sky because it's the seaside, isn't it? And I had a very clear 180 degree view pretty much of the horizon essentially, and a 360 degree of most of the sky. And so I, rather than having my specialist equipment, which I do have for taking panoramas, so in case you're interested, that means a tripod, a leveler, so you can make minute adjustments, a few spirit levels. So the idea is you get yourself absolutely lined up with the horizon. Then you have a thing on top of that which has a name, which I don't know, where you can basically preset how many degrees you want it to turn each time, and it'll then give a click every time you turn those degrees. So you set it to 30 degrees, say, and then you mount your camera on a separate thing. God, it's easier to show than explain, isn't it? I might get a picture of that if I can find the bits. And then you mount the camera, and it's very important that you mount there's a name for it again, the focal point of the lens. So you can just where your camera sits, so the focal point lies right above the center of the tripod. And what that does is it removes any parallax errors from turning the camera around. So with this arrangement, you then can twist it around your 30 degrees, and you get an exactly centered, no parallax error view of everything in a complete circle, and it makes it much easier to stitch this stuff together. And this was very important when you had slightly less sophisticated software. Now stuff will just work out where you're pointing, but there are still problems with that, because if you have no features in the picture you're taking, which is a particular problem with overcast skies, you need to be able to do a manual or semi-manual stitch together based on the number of degrees you've gone around. Anyway, I digress. So this is Southwold, and I manually did that job with parallax and wobbles. And why you not work? Okay, I didn't want to do that, but let's carry on. And you can see I just donk, and I carried round. I may only use this section and then clone it. Let's see if we can see Sizewell. Oh, not from that angle. Hi, Mum. And so it's not well lined up, but there's enough detail to get at least the sort of horizon area. And then what you can do is fudge it, and that's getting very... it's not easy to clone something that's got this perspective squish. It's actually quite tricky. I did, I think, take some pictures, here we go, of above. And that's really just to sort of stitch on as a non-squished bit. So there's going to be a lot of work to fit that together, and the amount of detail isn't sufficient, and clouds move, which means that it doesn't quite work because it tries to find matches in the textures, but it doesn't quite match because the clouds have moved. But there, so this is how I would probably make a skybox with this kind of cloud cover. I would make a panorama, stitch it together, and then, by the grace of God, possibly different software, turn it into a cube map. And then you can import it and use it as this thing. Maybe in Photoshop on a different horizon to this. I mean, if I can find it, there were some other times I went out. Horizon spotting. I had in mind to do a level based in a graveyard, because that's the kind of person I am. There we go. And it's hard to get the horizon because the horizon's full of trees in the graveyard. so I can't take reference materials in the graveyard to get the horizon. But this is Brockwell Park, and if I can Photoshop out the people in the foreground, this is, you know, leafy South London panorama, and it's overcast. So I might do this if I can, and a little bit of London because it is in London. And so from this, I might try and make a panorama. So if I do that, I will show you the results and possibly give it to the person who wants a overcast sky skybox. There we go. I think that's all. So I hope that helped you do skyboxes. Bye bye.